are talking about the movie The Vigilante Diaries. This one is directed by Christian Sesma, who also co-wrote this with star Paul Logan. It actually follows on from a short-lived TV series that was produced in 2013. Now, the most notable thing about this film, first of all, I would say, is it has got some quite good cast members here. Some people you're going to recognise, especially if you are a fan of straight-to-video B-movies and stuff like that. You've got Jason Mewes, obviously most notable for Jay and Silent Bob. You've got Quinton Rampage Jackson, obviously a UFC fighter first and foremost, but also was in the A-Team movie. You've got Michael Madsen, you've got Michael J. White. You've also got a few other people who you'll recognise as well. So it's got a pretty decent cast of kind of like lower tier kind of action heroes. And I would say this film is fairly divisive for me, because I feel on some levels it's actually quite good, but in other areas it kind of really falls short. And I would say, on one hand, this film is like a low budget Quentin Tarantino if he were to make a Punisher film. But on the other hand, it's a convoluted and confusing mess of a film. Now, the basic storyline here is we have a vigilante who's been very much acting like the Punisher for the last 10 years and has been kind of like, you know, killing criminals. And he's been doing this for the last 10 years. Now, our film actually starts off with him being captured by the Armenian mob in revenge for them killing one of their family members. And the first third of this film is his sidekick gathering up this kind of team of mercenaries to try and rescue him. So the main character's not even in the first third of this film very much. And then the remaining of the movie is obviously the kind of the remaining battle between our heroes and the kind of obviously the bad guys. So on one hand, like I said, this definitely has the influences are clear on it. Like I said, definitely some cues from Tarantino here. I do feel his influence on it, his kind of style of filmmaking, the cuts, the kind of the edits that you have here, and the kind of sometimes it'll have like the broken up into chapters and stuff like that. Also, some of the dialogue I feel is trying to be kind of like Tarantino-ish, but obviously it's clear that the kind of the biggest influence here is probably comic books, most notably The Punisher, because I feel this is really like a Punisher film, to be quite honest with you. It very much reminds me of the '89 Punisher, which they actually referenced, to be fair. So it's got lots of kind of action. There is this movie is pretty much gun porn, to be honest with you. It does have quite good production value, so you've got a fairly good cast, you've got decent production value, there's lots of props on display here, lots of fancy cars, I like the location shooting, and it does have a certain visual flair to it. Obviously I do quite like some of it feels quite like the director has definitely got a specific style, and there's obviously kind of very much made it like a comic book movie in that regards. But on the other hand, the plot here is very convoluted and confusing, doesn't make a lot of sense. I think the action sometimes as well is not all that well shot. There are a lot of action sequences here, and some of them are pretty good, but some of them feel like they've just been kind of rushed through and don't feel particularly convincing. You've also got things like, you know, your CGI muzzle flashes and stuff like that, so the action feels pretty low rent on a lot of occasions, not all the time, but some of the time at least. But the biggest grievance for me is the actual lead character here, who is called Vigilante, and he's actually played by Paul Sloan. And the sad thing is, he doesn't really have a lot of screen charisma, and he's pretty uninteresting as a main character, which is a shame, because obviously this film is really kind of his film, although not in the first third, to be fair. So, you know, he doesn't really feel like a character that you really care about, or don't really have much invested interest in, and seems like, you know, just a pretty generic badass, basically. The other thing as well, I think some of the characters veer on cartoonish a little bit too much, especially the Armenian mob boss guy, pretty cartoonish, to be honest. I mean, you might like that kind of thing, because obviously it is definitely a comic book influenced movie, although it's not based on, you know, like a specific comic book or anything like that. It's okay for a kind of a low rent action fest. If you like just action films where you can really just watch it for, you know, visual flavour, then you'll probably get a kick out of this. But if you want something a little bit more deep and meaningful and kind of a bit more coherent, then this is not going to be the film for you. So I will give this movie a 5 out of 10, so pretty much bang in the middle. I do feel It does have a certain visual flair. If you're a B-movie fan, I think you might like this, but if you want anything with any more depth to it, then I would say no. So straight down the middle for me, an average film, 5 out of 10, but it does peak in some interest in some areas, but kind of it hits the bottom of the barrel in others. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to you next time.